Hi guys, time for another video about the hydrosphere. Last time we talked about fresh water, lakes, rivers, ice, estuaries, kind of, remember they're brackish, all those. But today we're moving on to we're going to be talking about the salty water that makes up 97% of the water on Earth. So, almost all the water, super salty, and it's found in the oceans. So, oceans are really important to Earth, and they're part of what makes Earth such a special planet. Hopefully you know that they're more than just a great setting for a TV show. They're wonderful ecosystems and very powerful. This is a map that's showing you that all of the oceans are connected. So even though they have different names to help us identify them, they're all really just one giant ocean. Here's a more traditional map so that you can see that even though they're labeled differently, they are all connected in some way, even these little seas in Europe. All right, so the ocean contains all 92 naturally occurring elements, stopping right here at uranium. So these ones are not naturally occurring on Earth, and especially a lot of salt. Well, you might know that salt is made of sodium, over here, Na, and chlorine, over here, Cl. And salt forms these cool structures that are kind of crystal-like, which is why you see this crystal shape. There are also other kinds of salts that are not NaCl, but most of the salt that's in the ocean is NaCl. All right, so there are a lot of different things that can affect how salty the ocean is. Remember, that's salinity. And there are some things that cause it to become more salty and some things that cause it to become less salty. So evaporation is going to lead to more salty. Oops. More salt, because the water's leaving to go to the atmosphere, but the salt is not getting pulled up. Precipitation, so adding in more fresh water, is going to lead to less salt. Same thing with river runoff. Estuary, where a place where an ocean meets an estuary, is going to be less salty because the water from the estuary was fresh. Anytime water freezes, the water that remains a liquid is going to be more salty because the salt doesn't freeze with the water. So what's amazing is that when there's lots of salt, high salinity, the water is more dense than fresh water is. The water in every ocean is more dense than the fresh water. So high salinity leads to high density. And this picture is from the Dead Sea, which is the saltiest ocean, or sea. And what's amazing about it is that it's so dense that people can float really easily on the water, way more easily than normal. So it's a big tourist attraction. Besides holding a lot of particles, it also holds a lot of gases, which is really important. The gases that are in the atmosphere can also be found in the ocean. So oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, just to name a few. What's interesting about carbon dioxide is that, as we know, it's a really important gas. We talk about it a lot. There's a lot of it in the atmosphere. It's a greenhouse gas, so it's making Earth hotter. And the ocean can really help with reducing some of the effects that carbon dioxide has, because it enters the ocean and reacts with the water to form carbonate, which can be used by organisms to make these beautiful shells that you might collect if you go to the beach. The issue is if there's too much carbon dioxide, we have this problem called ocean acidification, which will actually lead to deformed seashells and the death of coral reefs, which is happening a lot now because we're creating so much carbon dioxide all the time that it's entering the ocean and it's harming ecosystems because it's creating these hydrogen ions, which are in red in the picture, and hydrogen means more acidic. So as we're lowering the pH of the water, it's having this really harmful effect on wildlife. All right, also important to talk about with the ocean is temperature. Of course, the deeper water is going to be colder, and it's also going to be saltier because there's less evaporation happening. We have these 3 temperature zones that are happening. This is the surface water up here, and then 2 is the thermocline, and then 3 is the deep water. So the thermocline is the area where, as you're getting deeper, you're also getting colder. And then after you reach the deep water, it stays pretty stable, even as you get deeper and deeper. The temperature of the ocean is important because water has this really high specific heat, which we talked about when we did the burning money demonstration. And so it can hold a lot of heat energy that land can't hold. And what that does is it has a really big impact on our weather and our climate, like we talked about last year. Hopefully you remember this is the Gulf Stream. It's really important, especially here in North Carolina, because it's what keeps our winters very mild and gives us this, really nice weather. Same thing in Europe. Europe is very far north, but these areas still have really nice mild temperatures, including Iceland. So what's interesting is that Greenland gets this really cold current that comes down, but Iceland's kind of protected from that because of the Gulf Stream. Similar is El Nino. Last year we had an El Nino year, so we had this very warm winter, and that's because of the winds and because of the ocean. All right, 2 more important things. This first one is upwelling. Upwelling is a process that allows nutrients from the deep water to come up and give really great nutrient sources to the organisms that live at the surface. Also, something that occurs is downwelling, which is the opposite of upwelling. And that's important because the oxygen from the surface is brought to the bottom, which allows the organisms that live in deep water to be alive and to breathe. Last thing today is that the tides are also very important to the ocean and how we can use it. Tides, as you know, are caused by the moon and by the rotation of the earth and the gravitational pull of the moon. And we can use tide to help us out because we can build these things called tidal dams, which can be used as an energy source that's clean and renewable and safe. The only cost to this is that it can harm wildlife, and so that is something that scientists and engineers have to think about when they're looking at alternate energy sources. But clean, renewable, and effective. All right, that's it for this time. Hope you guys learned something new about the ocean. Check back next week and we'll be learning about the different ocean zones.